Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining the webinar Process Mining. You've heard it 100 times. Hear why it works. My name is Sarah, and I'm your moderator for today, and I'm here with my colleague, Melissa, who is our Business Development Manager. She's going to help us monitor the chat for today. We are both based in the suburbs of Philadelphia, in our office in Malvern, and our presenter is Melody Briggs, who's also here with us today. She flew in from Houston to be with us for this webinar. And for those of you that may not know, Melody has over 25 years industry experience focused on business process automation and continuous improvement with extensive experience in IT project delivery, including ERP deployments, data and analytics strategy, and development, IT financial management, and infrastructure management. She is currently practice manager for Enowa's process mining and value realization team, which includes Celonis and Signavio certified data analysts and data scientists. Now that you know a little bit about our speaker, I also wanted to give you a refresher and brief overview on Enowa. Enowa is a global SAP Gold partner, as well as a certified Celonis and Signavio partner, executing business process transformation projects supported by SAP products. And in our 20 years in business, we have 100% repeat business with an incredible, strong track record. While we complete large-scale global S4 transformation projects, we have other clients that prefer incremental, pragmatic moves. And in today's webinar, we'll discuss one facet of a move, which is focused on process mining. So it looks like most people have logged in, so we will get ready to get started with our webinar. So give me one moment while I turn control over to Melody. And for the best webinar experience, your audio is muted. However, we do encourage you to submit your questions in a question area throughout the webinar. This will help us get right into them at the end. And please note this webinar is being recorded.
Okay, thanks.
Take it away, Melody.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. It's kind of weird. We're not used to being in the same room when we do these things. So I'm super excited to have the opportunity to be here today and to present to all of you that are joining us today a little bit about process mining. Process mining is a topic that is relatively new in IT. I mean, I think we started hearing about it maybe 10 years ago, and then we actually really started seeing it in the market, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and now we have tools that are popping up all over. And we're really seeing, I'm just super excited about it. It's my passion. I've been with Enowa now 2 years doing nothing but process mining projects. And when I was working in IT, when I was a global process owner, I wish I had a tool that would do the things that process mining does. So today, what I'm going to share with you is just a little bit of an overview. I'm sorry, I keep looking at the screen up there and then down here where you guys are on the webcam. So apologies for that. But today we're going to talk about process mining. We'll give you a little bit of overview, a 2-minute history lesson. It's not enough to get you out of college or anything, but brief, quick little history things. We're going to talk about use cases for process mining, and then I'm going to give you, I don't want to call it a demo, but I'm going to give you a walkthrough of 2 leading process mining tools. Now, both of these manufacturers, Signavio, which has since been acquired by SAP, and then the Salonist Execution Management System, offer much more than process mining. So in this webinar today, there's no way I can show you all of the form, features, facets of these tools. So we're going to just kind of walk through the highlights, just so you can get an idea for what process mining might look like in each one of those tools. We'll have a couple of closing remarks, and then we are going to open the floor up to questions. If you haven't already detected, I'm a pretty casual speaker, so if you do have a question anywhere along the way, please put it in the chat. If it's timely, Melissa will politely interrupt me and have me answer it on the fly. I don't mind that. In fact, that makes me feel like people are paying attention. I love that, so feel free to do that. But throughout the presentation today, I get my energy from you, the audience. So we are going to be asking a couple of poll questions. I think we actually have 3 today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Sarah for our first poll of the day, and then we'll get started with the rest of the webinar.
Perfect. So I'm going to launch our first poll question right now. If you can please take a minute just to submit your answers, and then we will share the results with you. I'm actually really interested to see where our attendees are in their journey for process mining.
Yeah, I mean, process mining is designed to be a really quick response to a problem if you use one type of use case, or really a long-term program type thing. So as we get started today, I'd just love to hear how our audience is, made up. If we are, already doing process mining. I know I saw on the attendee list some of our current clients that are doing process mining. I also saw some people on the attendee list that are part of organizations where we use process mining but may not be users yet. And then there's some people I know that may have heard about us on LinkedIn. They may just be curious about what it is. So I am going to
give it 10 more seconds, and I'm going to close the poll, and I'll share the results shortly.
Thanks, Sarah. I don't feel like Christmas.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. It looks like mostly everyone answered this, which is great. So here are the results.
Okay, so we almost half of our attendees are using Celonis. So we do have some, I guess that's some veterans, some process mining veterans. So that's great. Some are just investigating, and some are just curious and want to learn about it. So I'll try to make sure that I hit the high points of that for you guys that are using Celonis. We'll kind of talk through some of those things in the Celonis section. Those of you that are not yet learning about Signavio, so if you're investigating, we'll give you some options there. So, okay. Okay, so let's get started. Oh my goodness, it's the first slide, the real slide. Okay, so first off, I'm going to start with the picture. Will van der Alst. This is our brief history lesson. So Will van der Alst is referred to as the godfather of process mining. And I have to assume that this is because he happens to be a Dutch computer scientist. And he really is the first person that coined the phrase process mining. And that was in the late 1990s. And so we'll talk about him again, but he comes up a lot when we talk about process mining. So I wanted to find for everyone a good definition of process mining. So I went to Wikipedia. I actually had a book, and it referred to Wikipedia. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this for you today. So process mining is a family of techniques relating the fields of data science and process management to support the analysis of operational processes based on event logs. The goal of process mining is to turn event data into insights and actions. Process mining is an integral part of data science, fueled by the availability of event data and the desire to improve processes. Process mining techniques use the event data to show what people, machines, and the organizations are really doing. Process mining provides novel insights. That's what we want anyway. That can be used to identify the executional path taken by operational processes and address their performance and compliance problems. That's a pretty good Wikipedia definition. I really couldn't find anything wrong with it. But with process mining, operations can expose what's really happening in their processes instead of operating under assumptions. They can then identify root causes of bottlenecks in real time or near real time, whatever is appropriate for their system. They can optimize their resources and scale with full productivity and confidence, operating under what they know is actually happening, operating based off of what the data is telling them. See, aren't you excited? Okay, so as a business leader, or maybe a department head, or even an individual contributor, how do you know what's happening in your business process? And so for this conversation, I'm just going to use order to cash. Because we can talk about any process, but today I'm just going to kind of focus on order to cash. So if we want to look at this matrix here on how long it takes, so slow or fast, or how much insight you get, whether it's less or more, I'm going to talk about how you might find out about your processes if you were in the business. So first, let's look at the documentation, right? Everybody has well-documented processes that are available, right? Well, that's not always the case. I mean, if we're lucky, we have actual documentation that's current, or even training materials or SOPs. And that can be fast if you have them in a content management system or something like that, where you can access it and take a look at it. So it's fast, but does it tell you what's actually happening? Or does it tell you what's supposed to be happening, or what we think is happening? So it's kind of in the middle there. Or the other thing, you know, I'm kind of social, so what I might do is ask around. So that's conduct a manual investigation, right? Ask the people, ask people in the department, maybe send a couple of emails, or I could engage a consultant to come in and interview who we perceive are the business users that are executing the process. And then we document all of that, but that takes a while. And at the end, we have documented hearsay. There's not any data that really backs it up other than what people have said. Okay, or I could go another route. I could take a look at our reporting systems. Now, if I already have those reports set up, then that could be fast and it could tell me something. If I don't have the BI tool set up, I would have to define the KPIs, you know, figure that out, install whatever software that we're going to use, validate the data, and then go through and analyze it and wait for something to happen. If you want to see how long, you know, we could probably identify if the sales are going up or if receivables are going up or down. So this can give you some information about the results of your process, but it's still not going to tell you, hey, Sarah is not putting her orders in on time, or, you know, Melissa isn't shipping on time, even though she says she is, she left early that day, or it's not going to tell you any of those things, but it is an option. And then it brings us back to the subject of the webinar. We're down to process mining, and process mining is pretty transparent. It's pretty quick, surprisingly quick. A lot of people are surprised at how quickly we can stand up a process model, but it tells you a lot of things that you're not used to seeing, and that's what makes it so exciting for all of us. Well, the next step here is, how does it work? So users, I'm going to talk about this, and we're going to kind of draw little pictures here and keep this example in mind as we get to our tool demonstration. So our users are out there, and we're talking about order to cash, right? So our users are out there doing work. Customers are ordering products or services. They're maybe sending those orders in via EDI. They're maybe, I don't know, we have customers still doing it, faxing. They're, you know, ordering from a portal, or they could be calling a number and saying, hey, can you send this to me? That's all happening. Well, and then hopefully we're either scheduling the service to be performed, or we're fulfilling those orders. Somebody's shipping it out, confirming it. And then the really important part, we're sending out the invoices on time electronically for the fastest possible payment. And then if everything in that whole process works and there's no breakdowns, we're getting paid. Now, all of these steps are being recorded, hopefully in your transaction system. Many of you are SAP users. Some of you are using other ERPs to record this activity, but this stuff is getting recorded into the system. And that is where that's the secret sauce, that's the action. So, but what happens with the process mining tool, and I'm going to unpack this by looking at an example of a single case. So in this table, we have what could be. So use your imagination. I know those of you that are in IT, this is a very simplistic look at an event log. We have the order that's created, and then another user went in and the next day and changed the delivery. And then they created the delivery, they confirmed the shipment, and then the next day the invoice was created, and this is a good paying customer, so in 14 days we got our money. Well, that's great. And if we were using the BI report, we might actually see, you know, that it shipped either on time, and we might have seen the sale recorded, and we had the receivable, so we had cash collected. So we would see that in BI, but we wouldn't see that somebody went in and changed the delivery date. So we can use process mining to visualize what's actually happening. So in process mining, we might get a visualization that appears there on the right side of the screen. And this is the power of process mining. So what we see here is all of those activities. Now with one case, this isn't, you know, it's not earth-changing, right? If you read the activity log, you can see exactly what I have on the right-hand side. But the process mining tools, both of them that we're going to see graphically, will display all of the cases in your criteria and put them in that process map. Now I've included just on that side the difference in days between each step. And this is just to kind of help illustrate the fact that you now have a slice of activity data that you wouldn't have had in a traditional BI system. So we could see that from create item to confirming the shipment was 7 days. You can see that. You may be able to see that in a report if you were very specific about it, but that's some great information. We can also see that it took us 1 day from confirming the shipment to getting the invoice out, and then it took us 14 days to pay. I know we probably all have a report that tells us how long it takes a customer to pay. So all by itself, it's not, you know, you're like, oh, I can do that somewhere else. But when you see in the tools the power of putting this aggregated nature and being able to drill into how long it takes to get from one step to the next, or from start of the process to the end of the process, that's where you can really see great value in process mining. All right, so next is the use case for process mining. So if this is the first time you've ever heard of it, I think there's only a couple people that's the first time they've ever heard of it. One of the things that we always talk about is our use cases for process mining. Now, purpose is important because without that purpose, you're going to have all this data in one place, and for people that are from BI and analytics practices, when they see this data, it's all together, then they're like, all right, we can do all kinds of analysis. So as you embark on your process mining journey, you need to really articulate what you want to do in your journey, because if you don't, you may not get anything accomplished. And we kind of focus on that. It's really important to not just say we're going to do process mining, but we're going to do process mining for this use case. So what I have done here is put together the categories of use cases, and I'm going to talk about them in the order of, for Enowa and for what we've done here, what's the most common to the least common of the use cases. So I'm going to start with the most common use case for process mining, and that's business process improvement, right? Now, this use case, you know, we can have all sorts of things fall into this category, but the focus here is on business process improvement is where you focus on a process and you look to improve it. Typically 1 or 2 KPIs, and that's the most common thing that we see with process mining. It's also often the first step for an organization to do many of these other use cases, but it's relatively new. Like I said, a decade ago is when the first tool came out, became really commercially available in the last 5, 6, or so years, and then the last couple years, it's super popular. So a lot of people are trying it out, right? It's a test drive, just like your new car. You're going to test drive it, try it out, see how it works. So one example of a use case for business process improvement would be, I want to improve our on-time delivery. Our customers are not happy with us. We've got feedback that our delivery is, our on-time delivery is poor. You can then mine that process and focus on that KPI, and as a result of your process mining project, have an action plan to move that to the next level. But the focus here is on usually a process, one process. The next one that we see often is the next level above, right? Not just a business process improvement, it's a process automation use case. Now, most organizations today are looking to leverage technology wherever they can. There's a lot of industries that are, short on people. So we're trying to make the most out of our human resources and really leverage those technical resources. And we have people here that are from IT, and they're like, oh, we've got a tool for that. We've got a tool for that. But sometimes you don't really know what you want to automate, or what is the right target? What's the best way to focus that spend? So when you look at process automation, you're not just looking at one process. You're looking at one activity within the process. So I'll use an example of, let's just say, maybe we deployed a new ERP and we're nervous about our invoices. So what we did is we have a person full-time reviewing every invoice before it goes out the door. What we see is that that's probably taking a lot of time. And because we have a human in there, it's, I mean, not that that's important that we quality control check it, but we get to the point where we see that they're just checking the boxes. But by doing that, by putting that person, we're using a valuable resource. We are delaying invoices going out the door, which is delaying when they get paid, which is then, you know, impacting our working capital. So in that instance, what we can do with process mining is we can measure how long it's taking the creation of the invoice and the invoice to be sent, and then we can baseline that data. We can deploy an automation, or perhaps it's a criteria that allows us to automate that function. And then we can monitor using process mining, you know, how well we're doing. Is it really improving? Are we getting payback on that automation with that process? So, I mean, that's a really popular use case today. Now, this one, digital transformation, it is third on our list, but only because, not because it's not a good use of use case, but it's because these are typically big. Digital transformation, we're saying it a lot. Digital transformation in the form of we're migrating from ECC to S4. Transformation in that we've acquired a new company, so we're going to transform our business to bring everyone into a single ERP. These projects are big and they take time. And we use process mining because this is a big program, and process mining can be a part of that digital transformation program, where we really dig into any process that we have and focus on the as-is case, right? In transformation, we're going to look at how we do it today, and we're going to compare it to how we want to be, our to-be process. We can then deconstruct the variances. We can look at you know, focused effort on places where change is high, where we can add additional training efforts. So there's a lot of payback to using process mining in this way. We've seen it done in several places, and it works. It works very well. Next is auditing and compliance, and I really haven't talked about this to this point, but audit is an interesting function of process mining, because by its very definition, when we look at a process, we can see if something is done out of order. So going on a different process, I talked about order to cash mostly today, but talking about procurement, one common thing is what they call maverick spending, or out of process spending, where somebody decides to buy something outside of the process. And I'm sure none of that never happens in any of your organizations, but if someone, let's put it in the context of process mining. If you know, Sarah decided she didn't want to use the approved vendor for office supplies, and she just went and bought some, because I know, Sarah, you do that. No, just kidding. But she kind of went and bought some stuff, and she didn't put in a purchase rec. So what happened is the AP department gets the invoice. Well, that's logged. Remember that step where it goes into your system, right? We have a timestamp of when we received the vendor's invoice. And then Sarah's like, oh, well, I guess in order to get these guys paid, I got to create a purchase rec, and then I have to get it approved, and only then will it get paid. Well, a very easy use case there is to see how many times did we receive the vendor's invoice before we received the creation of the purchase order or the approval of that purchase order. Now, for office supplies, maybe not a big deal, but I know it happens in other places for much bigger dollars. So that's a really interesting use case. And the last one, and again, because we are IT, is in IT operations. IT is an internal consultant, usually help you run your SAP system, your ERP, but a really popular use case is on IT operations. They say in the IT world, you know, make sure we're eating our own dog food. So this is where we can actually use a process mining tool to demonstrate how well IT is doing their own internal customer support and supporting end users like the rest of you that are there on this call. Now, Gartner publishes a market guide for process mining. In their last update, I guess it's September 2020, the last one that I have anyway, they also discussed the process mining use cases. So I'm going to share with you guys the trends of these type of use cases. But as you see, the first one there on the left is the business process improvement, and the colors of the bars indicate the year and what percentage of the deployments were using this use case. So you see that business process improvement over time has decreased. Now that's not because it's any less important, but it's really because some of these other use cases are on the rise. So many people want to try it first. Many products out there are offering proof of concepts or proofs of value in the market. So what we've seen is that first, there's a lot of people looking at individual things. But as they move into transformation, as they move into process automation, those use cases are increasing over time. Now you see IT operations is little, but many organizations out there use ServiceNow. Some of you may have heard of the recent alliance between ServiceNow and Celonis that was recently announced. So I mean, what we're going to see is even internally for IT, we're seeing an uptick in those use cases. Now auditing and compliance kind of stays flat. And I don't necessarily have a reason or an explanation for that, but I think a lot of it is before you can really use process mining for auditing, you have to have it deployed as a process first, either through an individual process improvement, then you can use it. Typically, we don't do a first pass at a process mining deployment just for audit and compliance. So that's a little bit about what we're talking about today. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah for our next poll. Yeah, so thanks, Sarah.
So this is our next poll question. If I had to start a process mining project today, my use case would be around. Please select one of these. Improve a business process, identify where process automation should be deployed, digital transformation, auditing, and compliance, or other not listed. And we'll just give everyone 30 more seconds to submit their answers.
I feel like we should be playing like some Jeopardy music or something. But I'm a terrible singer, so I'm not going to do that. Even though my name is Melody, it's a little joke, right? Don't sing, don't sing.
So we'll give you 10 more seconds, and then I'll close the poll. All right, I'm going to close the poll now and then share the results with you. So more than 50% has improving business process as the use case that they would actually start today. So that actually confirms what that chart was showing.
It does. Right? I mean, I really think improving that business process is where people start. That's where you start the journey. Don't have to tell me, but if you're out there and you're doing digital transformation or automation, I'm curious if those folks actually already have a process deployed, or if they're just starting with a transformation. If you're especially quick, you could chat me a note there. I'd love to know that. But thanks for your feedback, guys. I appreciate that. It means that y'all are paying attention, so that's good, right? Okay. So moving on. Now we're going to step into, I'm calling it the tool spotlight. But with both Signavio and Salonist, I'm going to first do a couple of introductory slides about their overall platform, and then I will go to a kind of a walkthrough. I'll say a demo, but kind of a walkthrough of the tool, just to kind of give you that flair for what it is. Now, in the first part of this year, there was a big announcement that SAP had acquired a tool set called Signavio. They are in the process of being integrated into SAP. Actually, they're almost fully integrated now as business process intelligence from SAP. It is a suite of products that really follow the transformation journey. So they're very focused on the transformation journey itself. I do want to mention with the Signavio products, there's a couple that are SAP centric, and that is that first blue bubble, the SAP Process Insights. That's related to SAP only. Signavio itself, and in the next slide, I'm going to show you all the different tools that are represented by this, this diagram. The Signavio toolset is not SAP dependent. Now, they obviously can connect to SAP. They do connect to SAP with standard connectors and things like that, but they can also connect to other source systems. It's not just SAP. Now, the improvement aspects are also SAP focused, you know, intelligent RPA, low-code application development tools from SAP. But in their platform, their idea is to follow the transformation journey, starting from analyzing the process, the as-is, so that's the process mining piece, and then they go into the design and simulation of those to-be processes for that digital transformation. And then you can have the improved part, where you improve that process and, you know, from what you designed, and then you deploy it, and then monitor it through governance, and then that continuous feedback, you know, you have that circular loop that takes you back around to analyzing, improving, and monitoring, right? We're not going to do a transformation every day, but we still have the opportunity to really follow it through. And these slides are from the SAP public deck on the business process intelligence offer from SAP. So I did want to mention that. Now, to describe all of the tool sets that are in that business process intelligence platform, I'm going to kind of start in the left-hand side with the SAP Signavio Journey Modeler and Process Managers. And what this is really the capture, document, simulate your process. So it's that aspect of it. Now, when I go to the other side, you have the SAP Signavio Process Governance and Governance Collaboration tools. And these are human-centric workflow engines that help you, you know, execute tasks and all that sort of thing. Now, we have SAP Signavio Process Intelligence, which is the aspect that I'm going to show to you in just a moment, which is where we, you know, look at that data-driven visualization of the process as is, and look at that analyzation and end-to-end process there. And that happens in that process intelligence piece. Then we have the SAP Process Insights, which is, again, an SAP product just for ECC and S/4HANA, which gives you that process improvement potential based off of the SAP suite. And then you have the SAP Process Improvement tool set in there. So I'm going to pause this just a second. Let me get that demo environment up. Sure, everything is refreshing, because, you know, whenever you're doing a demo, the one thing that never fails is everything messes up, right? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and reshare. We should be seeing, okay, we should be seeing a Signavio screen. And again, this is a demo platform that is pretty much like a read-only thing for me, just to give you a walkthrough. So we are in the process intelligence aspect of Signavio, so the SAP Signavio Process Intelligence, and we are going to look at the current state analytics of an order-to-cash process. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse this last pane. I just want to show you that if you wanted to jump down to any part of the current state analytics, you can, but I'm just going to scroll down through it from the top, and I'm going to, you know, make the screen as big as possible to kind of give you an idea. Now, we have some narrative, the situation, you know, this is, these are, I'll call it configurable text that we can put in here to set the stage for the situation. I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but I do want to kind of give you that overview here. We have the introduction of the CFO, who's the persona this one is kind of looking to. We have some of the business objectives, eliminate late payments, lack of payments, reduce processing costs. This is kind of what we're targeting. We know that there's some things here: ineffective cash collection, too many cost, time-consuming adjustments, poor consideration of risk in the sales cycle. And this kind of gives you the context of what the sales are, just kind of give you those KPIs. Now, these also, again, these interconnect with many of those other modules, so this is kind of just a summary of them in this visualization. We have the order-to-cash life cycle presented here, which is the overarching order-to-cash process, where you go from order management through credit, order fulfillment, shipping, invoicing, AR, and collections management. And each one of those you could drill into. There's some other revisions of the life cycle that you could get into, but I'm going to get into the meat, which is the process mining piece, right? I think that's why we're here. We want to talk about, you know, the process. So this is the visualization of that process discovery tool. What we see here is there is a filtering of data, and basically we're looking at current state, and this data set is limited based off of what they're doing today. So this is why we see the 58%, and we have the number of records. We have a listing of all the activities are shown. So I bet for you guys, you can't read that because I can't read it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and kind of show you what we see after connecting to the process and visualizing it within this particular tool. So I'm zooming up. Now, we have a process start, and we kind of see there's a visually thickness to numbers, right? Start with 2,400 records, and we go to create sales inquiry, down to credit calculate score. So we have a thick number here. Oh, and we have a skinny line here. So these are visuals that kind of give you an idea of where you want your eye to look. I also want to note that this is set to occurrences, which tells us how many records there are. But there's also a switch to cycle time so that we can see how long, just like that example, how long it takes from step to step. So what we're seeing for this sample is we have the credit sales, the generate a sales inquiry, then we go through the credit score, a risk assessment, and then we get to the quotation. I'm going to switch it back just so we can see, our eye can go to the most common path. We create that sales quotation, then hopefully in most cases we go straight to creating the sales order. Well, then when we get into, oh, sorry about that, guys. I'm doing a little bit of scrolling there. Once we create that sales order, we want it to go straight through to delivery, but we do have some that are changed. They go through some reviews and some releases. And again, I'm just kind of scrolling through so we can all see. We see the delivery, the picking, the post the goods issue, and then that create invoice. And then we do have some things happening over here. We have stuff happening on the side, but specifically when we get to the invoicing stage, we started with the 2,400 orders. If we get 2,500 post goods issues, and then we had only 1.2 went directly from create invoice to receive payment. So there's all this other stuff that's happening. Well, we have 600 were returned. 600 of 2,400, that's a pretty high percentage. And then we end up canceling some of those invoices. You can see there's some other variations in the process. But this is that process visualization. We can get their activities, there's variance, there's some other things here, but that's that process x-ray of what's actually going, the data-driven approach to what's happening. Continuing on, there's some other things outside of process discovery that we can show. So we have some operational insights, observations that we can record, but then we have these widgets. So in the end-to-end analysis, we kind of have a widget that these are all configurable. And again, this is showing in euros. Obviously, that may not be what is appropriate for you, but these are all configurable based off of the data that is fed to the engine. Okay, with on-time deliveries of 1725 out of that 2,400, maybe that's good. It depends on the organization and the metrics. Really depends. We can keep going into additional insights and different analyses. We have cash collection is 23 days. Well, what they also have here is that additional slice of data. So we know based off of that credit assessment what the risk class is for a given case. When we have a risk class that's not evaluated, we see that their payment time is longer than those that are low and medium. So that tells us that perhaps we need to figure out how to evaluate more of those, the risks on more of our orders, something like that. We have some other analysis, some costs that we can show. We can look at our costs per 1,000 euros and unit costs, or for FTEs per billion. We have some targets here, and we can see where the averages fall. Again, these are back to widgets and all different graphs that you can, depending on your business and what the drivers are, KPIs for your business that can be configured here. And again, we have some cash collection metrics. This is what we talked about, that risk categories and things like that. Moving on to DSO, average days delinquent. Again, all of these are things that we can take a look at within the tool.
And Melody, since you're on this tool spotlight for Signavio, there is a question that came in about the order to cash. That they asked, what is the typical implementation, timeline for this tool for the use case that you're currently showing right now?
It really depends, and that sounds so flippant, but we usually see for an individual process, like an order to cash. We can have something visualized within 3 to 6 weeks. We can have something generally processed within 12. So it just really depends on the availability of data, the availability of people to validate the data, and that's probably the biggest variability there, is who can validate the data in their time. Since COVID, you know, we've been operating in kind of a different way, and sometimes our team members aren't as available as if when, you know, we used to come on site and spend dedicated time. So sometimes that protracts it, but, you know, usually we can have a working analysis within 3 weeks and a really finalized job within 12, but there's some variability there.
Thank you for that, Melody.
Sure. Okay, now that's just the highlights of, and a very, very quick walkthrough. I'm going to flip back over and talk about our other tool today, and that will be the Celonis Execution Management System. So let me make sure we're broadcasting everything correctly here. So the Celonis Execution Management System, Celonis has been around, you know, for the last decade, and they've certainly been very active in the market in the last couple of years. But their software, just like the business process intelligence from SAP and Signavio, is a suite of tools. So talking about Celonis, it's really based on, you know, 5 pillars. And the 5 pillars are listed here, and I'm just going to hit them very quickly. There's real-time data ingestion. So they have a specific engine to help bring in data as quickly as possible. They have a process and task mining pillar. Now that process mining, that's where it all started, but the rest of these pillars really came out of what's next in your process mining journey. So it starts with process and task mining. So task mining is something that they've been heavily investing in to help us capture not just the things that are done in an ERP, but some data that's done on your desktop. The newest pillar that they've added is the planning and simulation pillar, which, you know, could be similar to some of the other aspects of this process mining tools. So they want to see you plan your deployments, plan your process, and then simulate those processes and manage KPIs. And then we have the pillar of visual and daily management, which is what their piece of making this an execution management system. This allows people that are daily users, so AP clerks, customer service reps, a view of what's happening in the process in real time and how they can act on it in a daily basis. And that last pillar to the right, there is action flows. Now, action flows are a result of an acquisition that Celonis made in a software called Integramat, which is a low-code automation tool that they have integrated within their platform to help you take action on things when they're not going as they should, allow you to push the process. And they're system automations. They're not like a bot that works within one system. They're over your entire landscape. It's a very interesting and powerful tool that we are starting to work with now. Across the bottom there, we talked about different systems that can integrate, just like Signavio's process intelligence tool. Celonis can connect to virtually any system out there through some standard APIs, and they do have accelerators to do that. Now, the basic premise for Celonis is very simple. It's measure what's going on to identify gaps, know which gaps have the greatest impact and the right course of action to close them, and then act. Do something about it. Not just look at the process and say, hey, this is wrong. Let's do something to fix it. So that's where they are, the space that they're operating in. We're getting close to the end of time, so I'm going to go quickly to our Celonis demo environment, and I know that I'm going to have to probably relog in, so we're getting there. Just 1 second, guys. All right, let's see. All right, so this is a Salonist Dashboard for also an order to cash process. They have a kind of organizational tool on the left-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that out just so we can expand and just take a quick look at a couple of tabs here. So they're very KPI driven. We have the number of cases that we're looking at. We have some tiles here that show us the number of sales orders, the number of sales order items, and the net order value. And then we have some KPIs here, how they're doing with their on-time delivery, which, you know, I indicated was one common use case. They're not doing so good, not doing good, right? Things are dropping. We can see their organizational efficiency, their perfect order rate is going down, and their customer satisfaction so their Net Promoter Score is also going down. So we can see this in an aggregated method. But I do want to get to that, heart of the matter, that process visualization. This is the Celonis Variant Explorer, which has some, interesting features as well as the Signavio one. But you'll see we visualize the process. Now I'm going to zoom in, and what I'm looking at is the top 7 variants in this process, which is 80%. So if you're going to Pareto things, we're going to look at 80%. We'll just take a look at that top 80% of the process. And we can see we have the process and the steps that we follow through to go through it. Now, what I'm seeing here is the time it takes to go from one step to another, but I can also change that KPI to see the number of orders. I also can see that KPI to see the automation rate, because that's the way this particular analysis has been configured. I didn't show it in the other one, but they did also have an automation rate. These are common things that both of the tools can do, but we do have that in both. So you can take a look at the processes. The red ones are low automation, the green ones are high automation. Tells you a lot of good information. We have details on-time delivery, and as we talked about in that sample slide, when we have extra data, not extra, but more data than just about the transaction, we can slice and dice our information differently. We can look at delivery root causes, or we can perhaps see if that is a result of a company code. Maybe one particular company code is doing it better or worse than another. There's also some things we can look at productivity, which is just a different look at the same data. We have the same process view. We have the same, drill down opportunity, perfect order rate. Maybe it's by customer. We can then look and drill down into the data by customer. I'm going to bring up just a couple more little quick features here. Talk about process conformance, because when we talk about audit and compliance, we want to see how many people are actually following the process. So in this particular instance, we have 59% performing cases. We can use some of the advanced technologies, machine learning, to really explore root causes. We can see what's not working and what the impact on our process is on that. Then we can also use the term of benchmarking, which would be taking one company code and benchmarking it against another. In this particular example, we can see that the pertinent statistics here. Looks like on-time delivery of company B2 is less than that of B1, but the automation rate of B2 is slightly higher. Now that is a super fast run through there of Celonis and Signavio. So what we'll do now is get into closing. And before we do that, Sarah, are you prepared to do our last poll?
Yes. Let me go ahead and launch that poll here.
Great.
Okay, so our last poll would be, which process mining tool are you interested in hearing more about? And this is really for us to be able to come up with more webinars and use cases where we can help identify what areas are of most interest to you, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, we have different people that work in either of these systems. And, again, today is just, a very, very small sample of what we can do with these tools. So, if any of you are interested in hearing more, just, go ahead and reach out to us. But we would like to get a feel for the audience on what you'd like to know more about, so that we know, where to spend our efforts and how to serve you, our clients, better. So we'll give them a couple more seconds.
10 more seconds, and then I'm going to close this poll. But while we're waiting for that, I just want everyone to know that we're almost out of time. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit them now. If you need to drop off, you can go ahead and email me your questions. Melody's going to do some closing remarks here, but there was a question that did came in earlier when I was looking through them. What would be a key criteria that would drive businesses to one or the other tool? So between
it's a good question. So one of the things that I want to say is I just love process mining. I don't care which tool you use, and really what we try to do is really look at what software you have, what are the use cases that you have, what's your budget, what's your timeline, what are your overall organizational goals, so that we can match the best tool to what you need it to do. I use this example of, I want to remodel my backyard, so I need some stuff. Well, I really got to decide, do I want to make it, do I want to plant something or do I need to build a fence? So I need to have some context of what you're trying to do so that we can help you get the right tool, not just buy a hammer and it work on everything, because hammer's not going to help my flowers, right? So we just want to make sure we match that tool. So, I'm happy to have a quick conversation, kind of talk about what you have, what licenses you already own, what we can leverage, to get you in there quickly and get you to some process resolution.
Perfect.
All right, you're gonna close that poll for
Yes.
me? Okay, so I'm gonna go into closing remarks really quickly. Why should you use process mining? And again, this is,
Do you have another slide?
let's see. I'm trying to get technology. We did so good, we got to the end. So these are Melody Briggs's opinion, on why we use process mining. But one of them is to gain visibility. There are so many organizations that do not have end-to-end process visibility for a lot of reasons. They could be, they're disjointed from a geography perspective or multiple systems. We can use process mining to really give you end-to-end visibility of that process. I'm a visual person, and process mining really feeds my soul in that way. We use process mining so that we can make fact-based decisions. We had an organization that we were working with that were told by somebody that they had way too many people in their procurement organization. Well, so of course somebody said, well, we should get rid of those people. Well, let's take a look at what those people are doing before we get rid of those people. Let's redeploy them and make sure they're doing the right thing. What we found is they were doing a ton of manual effort. They were using their ERP system as a very expensive typewriter and not leveraging the system for what it was. With that, we were able to help them reorganize themselves and leverage the system that they'd already invested in to really make good fact-based decisions. The other one is to drive a culture of continuous improvement. Guys, technology is changing so very fast, and there is, so many new things coming down. There's new technologies released every day. We really all have to be focused on constantly improving ourselves. It's the continuous next thing. And process mining, understanding what's actually happening, really helps you do that. And the last one is, it's a small thing, but we really need to improve our customer experiences. I mean, I know I'm turned off anytime I have a bad experience, and our clients are turned off anytime they have a bad experience. So we really want to use process mining to make sure our customers have the best possible experience with our organization. So I'm going to leave it with another Will van der Oss quote, and it's kind of long, but he was interviewed last September by Gartner, and basically this is about process hygiene. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he likens, process mining to process hygiene, like washing your hands. Organizations need to be willing to look at the real processes at a detailed level and address problems, address them. It's important for the overall health and well-being of the organization, and he feels that in the future, not using process mining should be what requires justification, not the other way around. So I think that's a really interesting, standpoint on process hygiene. Processes are what are making the world go forward. We're all investing in software and deploying that software, so making sure that we're running in the best possible way is in the best interest of the organization. Really quickly, I just want to speak a little bit about my team. We have a nice, wonderful, dedicated team that is a current Platinum partner with Celonis and a certified Signavio partner. We are an SAP services firm, but just remember, I mentioned it twice already, I don't care what system you're running, we can mine any process. We can do SAP, we can do Oracle, we can do Workday, we can do Salesforce, we can do any of those systems, or ServiceNow if you're out there, IT operations. We've helped a lot of other clients. We've realized value and deployed all sorts of processes. So if you're interested in getting into process mining, I really want you to encourage you to reach out to us either directly through email, LinkedIn. We're out there any way you can be. And I guess I'll leave it with that. Sarah, you want to have any other questions?
Yeah. So we have another minute left.
Okay.
Before we do end with that, there was one question that came in about Signavio.
Okay.
What's the difference between Signavio and Solution Manager? Is there one?
There is. There is. I mean, Signavio, I've gotten that question a lot. We could do a webinar on that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, they are different tools with very different functions. The output's very different.
Okay.
What you get from it. So just remember, Signavio is really focused on that business process.
Okay.
So just think create order, credit check, delivery block. It's really focused on that. Solution Manager is a different animal altogether.
Okay. And then I have a few more questions that came in. It doesn't seem like we're going to be able to get to that. So we'll email you privately and get those questions answered for you. And we also, I just want to let you know that we also have a webinar next week on analytics. So the registration link is available. I'll be sending out an email, so you should be getting that sometime this week. And also, if you wanted to stay up to date with any of the latest news events from Enowa, please follow us on our social media platforms. And also, you can always send me an email with any questions or anything that you have post-webinar. And I want to thank you, Melody, again for this presentation. It was very informative. Thank you, Melissa, for helping us monitor the chat and the questions today. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.